Okay, Mark, you're recording. And I'm recording.
That's supposed to go red. That's why I was like,
Yeah, it didn't go red.
All right, I'll put that in later.
Yeah. So we got to let it play out. You could hear the music though, right?
Yeah,
Nice.
sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's a great tune. Okay, here we go. It still didn't. The world freaking crap. Formless back. Oh, I know what I did. I didn't put the memory card in.
doesn't it have intern? Oh, but then it's thinking, oh, wait, I need to record to a memory card, but there is nothing in there.
Hey, check out that
All that
hat. You
stuff.
get that hat. That's cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the stupid card in.
Thank you, Mark, for doing everything with that.
Looks so good.
Yeah, it does. I wear it around town. Yeah. It just everything looks good. What?
I've gotten a ton of compliments on it.
Then it's good.
There we go. Now, there it is. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay. We're recording now. We got video. Here we go.
Recording the video too.
The whole time. The art of life is more like the wrestler's art than the dancer's in respect of this, that it should stand ready and firm to meet onsets which are sudden and unexpected. Friends, this is the Formless Podcast, episode number 64, with Tyler, the superhuman, and me, Dustin. And I have a little something that I wrote for our guest here.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Our guest is none other than Mark, Mr. Mark, as I call him, or as some people in his hometown might call him when they meet him. I started writing this last week when I finalized the idea that this was going to happen. Mark is my friend, and and a man of many talents who wears many hats, a very talented musician, web designer, family man, hot rodder, a true international man of mystery, who has built more than a few businesses and designed websites for the Record Searchlight, the Oakland Raiders, and built our very own website, just to name a few. A guy whose enthusiasm for life is unmatched by mere mortals. Mark is the definition of a true friend who has not only edited every single episode of this podcast, but has cheered us all on along the way. Mark, thank you for putting up with us. This took a little while to get set up, but I truly appreciate it. And I don't know that I personally could ever repay you for all the stuff that you've done. So thank you and welcome. And what do you got?
Well, thank you. That was good.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Am I the right guy?
You are the right guy. You are the right guy. I have to start off by saying, so when I first met Mark, he was working for another company and always kind of he and I was working for my previous employer, and we had gone through close to a dozen different web designers and stuff. We were trying to build a store for the website for the company, and it was really complicated, lots of different items. There was like 30,000 SKUs or something like that. I don't remember. It was a ton of just stuff. And we've gone through all these people that just didn't work out for one thing or another. And And Mark was very humble but confident.
Hmm.
And I don't know if we hit it off right away, but I felt like we did. I was just like, I like this guy. He's one of those people you meet and you're like, okay, I can trust him. Where some people you meet and they say stuff and you're just like, I don't know if I can believe that yet. Mark had a way of telling you, like, oh, I know how to do that without sounding like overly confident and overly like a braggart,
Right.
you know?
Okay.
And I like that right away. And that was like 12 years ago, 10 years ago. I don't know, somewhere. I don't know. How long ago was that, Mark?
It was a while, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was funny because I ended up working alongside him a lot.
Okay.
Like we spent many, many hours sitting shoulder to shoulder, like you and I are right now, and just talking. You spend hours together with somebody working on stuff. There's only so much work you can talk about without having to break off and talk about other things. And we had a lot of similar interests. We like cars, we like music, we liked our politics aligned pretty closely. Just
That's always good.
all of this stuff. And it was like, oh man, every time I like, I didn't care for the job all that much, but like the highlight of the week was like, oh, Mark's coming. So I get to hang out with my buddy and we'll BS and like work on the website. So it was really cool. And then he comes into work one day and he's like, I'm moving to Georgia. You suck.
Yeah.
Not because he's moving to
No,
Georgia,
no, but like, oh man, gotta leave me. So and that was what, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago,
7, yeah.
7 years ago. Okay. I have my concept of time is lacking. So I don't remember dates all
Maybe
that
8
well.
and I missed one.
Yeah, yeah. So there are so many stories that you have told me over the years that are just crazy. Like he you built the website for the Raiders. Were they the Oakland Raiders or the LA Raiders at the time?
They were Oakland Raiders, and I worked on it. I didn't necessarily build it, but I worked.
Okay. Okay. So my
And did I tell
introduction.
you that story how I got that job?
No, you did not.
let's
Okay,
hear it.
that all right. So I was doing like a construction kind of job, and I had an accident, broke my back. And when you do that, they say, "Hey, why don't you learn a new skill? Because you're not doing that one anymore." And they, yeah. So I went to San Jose State, learned how to do internet stuff. And first, I got a computer, and I thought, better figure out how the computer works. And I put the mouse over on the wrong side. I didn't know the buttons were different, and I couldn't figure out how to use the computer. For like 6 hours, I'm just like clicking the button. It says, "What's this? What's this? What's this?" I'm like, "How do you even use this thing?" So I call my wife at work. She worked for IBM or something. I'm like, "How do I use the mouse?" She told me, "You're clicking the wrong button." I'm like, oh. But then pretty quickly I was doing websites and stuff. But what happened at the school was one of my teachers, he was the second T in TNT Media, and TNT Media did the Raiders website. And so he's like, "Oh, hey, you got to call the other T." His name was Rick. And he goes, "Call him up. He's going to love you." I'm like, okay. So that seems weird. But first thing I do in the car, what am I doing? Of course, I'm calling up the other T, right? And he's like, "Nettleton, you must know Rich. Do you know Rich?" And I'm like, "Yes, my brother." And that was my brother's best friend in elementary school.
Hmm.
So I never met him. I didn't have to talk to him. I was just hired instantly. Next thing you know, I'm at Raiders camp. I'm in the building. I'm learning things I'm not supposed to know. It was a blast.
Huh.
I didn't
So that's
hear
how I
that
got
whole
that.
story. I mean, that's the rest of the story I didn't hear. All he did was tell me in passing that, oh yeah, I worked on the Raiders website or I built the Raiders website. That is so rad. Um, so you did construction and you broke your back?
Yeah, you didn't know this story?
Well, I had
Okay.
again only
Okay.
heard
Oh, wait. Oh, you got to
pieces.
rerun the stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was doing gutters and it was raining and I worked every single day of the year. There wasn't any day I didn't work unless the boss said, "Hey, let's go on the houseboat." Then I said, "Okay." But and it was raining, but I always worked in the rain, didn't matter. But I was working with a guy, he had a really, really bad attitude and he was just complaining and complaining and complaining. And that's not really any fun when you're doing a job. It's already a hard job, but we had so much fun. The job was always fun. And this guy's just dragging us down. So I'm just kind of telling him, like, dude, just go home. And he's like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. I go, none of us will tell the boss that you went home. Like, you go home, we'll have more fun, we'll get the job done faster and better. You'll still get paid. It'll be great. So we were kind of arguing. I went up the ladder and cannonballed the driveway.
Oh, just slipped
The
just
ladder
like
was an A-frame ladder. Don't use A-frame ladder to get on the roof, right? A-frame
oh,
ladder. I was going up the ladder. I was mad. I was talking to the guy, not paying attention. Down went the ladder.
down with
Ooh,
Mark.
That was it.
Dang.
ooh.
But without that, we never would have met.
No, no.
So it's all good.
Yeah,
How
yeah.
long did it take to recover from that?
That's a good question. So the worst things were for a long time, like I couldn't pick up my kid, or I couldn't pick up a gallon of milk, or turn a shopping cart. Those seems like
Ooh.
weird things, but like I couldn't turn a shopping cart or pick up milk probably for a couple years. Um, but or figure out how to use a mouse apparently. Uh,
So to add to that, so you before you started building websites, you didn't know how to use a mouse, or was that a
No, I
result of
didn't. I had a computer that I had got, like I was like Dustin mentioned, I was into cars. I would buy and sell cars and parts and things. And I don't know, I was selling a car and somebody gave me a computer and some car speakers and I don't know for a car. So I had a computer, but I didn't really know how to use it. And it was actually Windows computer, like the first Windows before they had mice.
Oh, oh, okay.
Mice. You couldn't really do anything on there. You had to type stuff. And I never used it anyways. So yeah, I didn't know how to use a computer. Didn't.
That is
and then you learned how to use a computer while your back was broken. You were recovering. I
I
mean,
was the I was the guy that got up like at 6 in the morning, went to work, worked all day, came home from work, and then I'm sanding, painting the car, changing the engine until I can't see my hand in front of my face, and then do it again the next day. That's like every day, every day, every day, every day, except for the houseboat trips, right? So I broke my back. All of a sudden, I can do nothing. I'm sitting at home. I don't have a TV. I don't have cable. I don't have anything. This is the late 90s. And what am I going to do?
you got a lot of
I
time
had
in your
this
hands.
magazine, the Silver and Black Illustrated, which was like a monthly kind of Raiders magazine. And so, first thing I thought, okay, I got a computer and I've got the internet now. Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? I should go to the Raiders website and read something, right? So when I closed the browser, though, there's this little pop-up window. It said GeoCities, get your own free homepage. And I'm like, what is that? That's when they had pop under ads. Those are way better. I don't know why they don't use those now. Pop under, then when you're done, it's just right there on your desktop, right? So I'm like, okay, got my own homepage. What am I going to put on it? And so I just opened up that magazine and thought, well, I'll just put some news like that I heard on the radio or I read in the magazine. I made my own little Raider website. And I don't remember the question anymore.
no, so you just didn't know you like using a computer, you had just barely used them before, and then you
Right. And in
you
2 weeks, I'm doing websites. Yeah.
that's crazy. And so you just went from knowing not how to use a computer to now knowing how to use a computer and
And,
building websites.
and then the neighbor who lived under me, I lived in like a fourplex. He knew that I was doing the website thing because apparently I tapped my foot on the floor and made too much noise. So we talked every once in a while. And his next door neighbor owned a travel and entertainment internet company. So he's like, hey, this guy does websites. So that guy knocked on my door and said, you do websites? And then so I had a job. I think I was 2 weeks into workers' comp or something ridiculous. And I'm like, all right, let's cancel that. I got my two checks and now I got a job making more money than I ever made in my life doing websites down the street.
Wow. That okay.
That's incredible.
So and it just kind of you just kept rolling with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Mark's one of those guys that like your enthusiasm for stuff is a lot like Tyler's. Whereas like when I told Tyler when I like mentioned the fact that I want to start a podcast, Tyler's like, "Yeah, let's do it. Let's start tomorrow. I got a camera, or I got to record." And I'm like, "Whoa, dude, slow
Let's
your
do it.
roll."
Yeah.
Like that we're already in deep water and we haven't even done anything yet. I'm just talking about it. Like I got no clue what I'm going to do next. And but I immediately thought of Mark and I was
Uh-huh.
like, I got a guy that I need to call and let me see if it's like even possible and like where do we host it? Because you have to host it. You can't just like record it. It's got to go somewhere. And I call Mark, you know. So I called Mark that night. And Mark's like, yeah, no problem. You just do this, you do that, and you know, XYZ, you know, Bob's your uncle. Done deal. And
Done.
immediately I'm like, I'm in over my head. I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know how to do this. And I've got two friends now who are super enthusiastic, super excited about it, and are already committed. I got to do some homework, you know. Um, but that fearless attitude that the two of you possess is something that I like. My brain is always like going, oh no, you can't do that. Don't even try. You're like, don't like, no, there's all these excuses. And that's what it is. It boils down to just excuses of things that you can't do or you
Right.
shouldn't do or you don't want to do or, you know, whatever. And you two have the exact opposite. You're both, in at least in my eyes, you both are like, okay, that sounds fun, and you're laughing and smiling the whole time. Like for those of you that are listening to this, like it took us an hour and 20 minutes to get this set up and make sure everything's working and we can talk to each other and hear and actually record and video everything. And Tyler's just like, oh, we can do this and laughing about it the whole time. And Mark's like, let me know when you're ready. I'm all set. Here we go. And the back of my head screaming, like, just quit. Fail, fail, loser.
No, no, I think it's definitely for me at least, it's kind of in a way um like when I was a kid, and you would have you'd want to go out and take your BB gun and go bird hunting. That's what
Yeah, yeah.
we would do. And so it's just like, oh, you just look at this big tall hill and you'd be like, oh, we can do that, or oh, we can go back and watch some TV. But it's just like that sense of child wonderment that just you just boil everything down to where it's real simple and you're just like, oh, like we can do that. We can climb
Yeah.
that hill and go find birds up on that hill, or we can just figure this out, right?
Or
And you got to have, you got to be grounded. You can't just be like, oh, I'm going to swim from Florida to Cuba, like, I mean, so you
there's a there's a reality
a
base to it.
reality,
But yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Maybe I'm just a realist. I don't know, Mark. What do you think? What is your opinion on that? Because do you feel that way?
I think we could swim to Cuba. We just have to sit down and pencil it out and figure out like how far are we going to swim before we get tired and what do we need, like there's a way to do it,
There we go. That's it right there.
I think.
That is exactly what I'm
Let's swim
talking
to
about.
Cuba. We're swimming to Cuba and I'm figuring it out.
That's right.
And then we'll go to Europe after.
Yeah.
Swim to Europe.
Yeah. Swim to Europe. Yeah. I swim like a rock. So no, but no, and it's the same kind of thing. Like after Mark moved to Georgia, he was still working for the company that I worked for, like still working on the website, still doing all that. It just, he wasn't sitting alongside me anymore. We would do a
Mm-hmm.
Zoom chat or I'd call him on the phone. Or we'd text each other back and forth jokes or internet memes we saw and stuff like that. But then a few months after he had moved out there, he like drove cross country to because you sold your friend a guitar or you
No, my
treat.
friend died. This was a COVID thing. And
Okay.
he, I don't know what we're allowed to say, and you can still publish. So let's just say my friend died.
Okay.
And it wasn't really a great time to travel. because there's all this scary stuff, and people are like, well, you can't get into New York unless you got your papers, or, they're kind of talking about different things. And I thought, well, if I fly out there, I might get stuck in California and not be able to get back. So I'm not going to go. But the widow had heard that I might come, and she just was crying and so happy and all this kind of stuff. And my wife's like, when the widow wants you to come, you come. Right. I'm like, okay. Plus, there was some kind of security issue. She needed some sort of protection. And so I hit up, like, who are my friends that are police officers or ex-police officers or Army or Marines or whatever. And I brought some guys to stand around, make sure her funeral was not interrupted. And I felt I really should be there for both those reasons. So I jumped in the car and drove across the country. But the part you're talking about is my friend on Facebook from junior high school said, "Hey, you're coming to California. Let's meet up." And I'm like, okay. And he goes, "How close are you to Nashville?" I'm like, way closer than you are. I mean, like, it's a perspective, right?
Yeah.
"Oh, I got an amp in the studio up there. Can you pick it up? I'll pay you money." "How much do you want?" I said, "It's an hour out of my way. I'll just pick it up. I don't need anything. But what I'd really like," because he's a musician, I go, I got all these riffs. I write riffs every day. Teach me how to write a song and I'll trade you that. He's like, "That's it?" Well, that's it for me. That's like my whole life dream. But to him, it was like not a big deal. So yeah, so I picked up his amp in Kentucky, or almost Kentucky, drove out to his studio, learned how to write a song, went to the funeral, and yeah, that was great. 22 states I drove through.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. He called me at work and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm working." "Well, I'm going to be by in like 20 minutes, half hour. Do you want to get lunch?" And I'm like, "Where are you?" He's like, Grants Pass, or no. You were closer than that. It was like,
I was in Weed.
yeah, I was in Weed, California.
Oh,
And he's
okay.
like, I'm coming down I-5 and I'll be there in a little bit. And do you want to get lunch? Like, yeah. So it was awesome times. Um, yeah, man. Geez, Mark. Now, was that the song that you recorded? Was that the song that we put on the podcast?
That's the end. At the end, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that song that he recorded is on the end of the outro music.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, we love it.
I
It's
got
awesome.
Greg Bissonette to play drums on that, which people are like, "What?" They think that's crazy.
For those that don't know, Mark, would you let us know who Greg is?
Greg is a drummer. He played with a guy called David Lee Roth on all his records. He played with Joe Satriani. He played with Steve Vai. He's played on hundreds and hundreds of albums. And I got him to play on my stuff because he came to Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta, so I'm like, "Oh, that's cool." And he was on a podcast, live on a podcast, right? I just happened to catch it while it was live. And he's being interviewed. He's in town to play a show, and the host says, "Hey, what do you got to plug? Like, you got anything coming out?" And he's like, "I don't have anything to plug because I got a show tonight, but by the time this airs, the show will be over." Right? He's like, "Well, there's got to be something." And he goes, "All right, if you want me to play on your songs, send me an email." And you can hear my fingers typing.
Like right away.
Yeah, so I sent him an email. We hooked it up, and he played on those first two songs I wrote.
That is
Wow,
amazing.
that is cool. Huh.
Just a chance, like you just found, like you didn't know, hey, he's going to be on this podcast. You just happened to find it on YouTube.
Just open the YouTube, and it says, "Oh, Rick Beato's live," and I clicked on it and watched the interview, and next thing you know, he plays on my songs, and that's cool.
That is awesome.
That is cool.
Right.
The next ones, though, are going to be Kenny, I think. I'm going to have Kenny play on the next ones.
Right on. That was the guy that you posted with on the Facebook?
Yeah, Kenny Aronoff. He's was the drummer or is the drummer for a guy called John Cougar, now John Mellencamp. He's played
Yeah.
Bon Jovi and the same Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. He's got like 100 #1 songs that he plays on. If you've
Whoa.
ever turned on the radio since you were born, you've heard his music.
Somewhere.
And nobody knows who the drummers are. You know?
Well,
Right.
they sit behind. They're behind everybody. Backline.
So I
That's
got to do it just because I can, not because I need to. But why
well,
not? Why wouldn't you?
exactly.
If
Absolutely.
Jocko wanted to do your podcast, would you say no, no, no? Me and Terry, we can do it. Like,
I'd be
or
like,
would you
uh,
tell me no? Like,
do you want my firstborn? What do you need? Sorry, kid. No, my wife's going to hear this. That's not going to happen. Don't worry,
well,
love.
that's wild, and it's just fun, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I I appreciate that about the both of you. Like, you guys are always willing to go. Like, let's do it, and it's inspired me, and it's made me want to do stuff and like step out of that comfort zone. Um, and I just like my attitude now since meeting both of you guys and spending time with both of you has been more like, let's just try, let's see what
Let's
happens.
see what
and
happens.
and I've gotten a lot further in life because of it, and I'm a much happier person because of it. um Sometimes the ego gets a little bruised, but that's all right. You can heal from that. um
What,
but yeah.
what do you think? Where do you? It's a question for you and for Mark. Where do you guys think that comes from? Is that like that? When you're a kid, you're just like, oh, let's just do it, right? Let's just do it.
Absolutely.
And then we
Yeah.
get older, and it's like we start to it's all of a sudden we take less risks, right? And we don't want to get out there as much. Is that an age thing? Is that growing up and then having maybe some disappointments or some failures, and then we just start, that's a mindset that we start thinking. I mean, I know I've gone through that, where I can remember being a kid and just being like, oh yeah, like I'm just going to go do this thing, right? But of course what you want to do as a kid isn't the same
This
as
is
an
what you want to
adult.
do as an adult.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, in regards to a kid might say, oh, I'm going to go climb that tree. And another kid says, well, I can't do that. And the kid's like, yes, you can. And they go climb the tree versus, okay, now I'm going to start a company. And, but it's still the same thing of overcoming that hump, right? It's still the same belief, in my opinion. I mean, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I was just reflecting on my own like thing, my own hangups, I
Yeah.
guess, and like why. Um, I don't. I agree with you. I don't know why I'm the way I am.
You know what I'm saying? Like, is it a learned behavior that we have that it's like we learn to then not take risks? Is that a learned behavior? What do you think, Mark?
So for me, I have obviously the curiosity, right? Let's say we're kids, we're all 12 years old, we're at one of our houses, and Tyler says, hey, let's jump off the roof. My first instinct is no. But hey, that might be fun. Is well, let's see, where's the roof? How high is the roof? Is there some safe way I can jump off the roof? If there is, or like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. I didn't realize the pool's back there. Let's jump in the pool from the roof. That sounds like fun. Um, if there's not a safe way, I'm just like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And I don't care. This is just something about me. I don't care if Tyler doesn't like me anymore because I don't want to jump off his roof. Like, that's a superpower thing that I'm lucky to have. Where if you're like, hey, let's go do this thing, and yeah, I'm not doing that. I don't feel that what people call the peer pressure or whatever. So there's that curiosity part. But the other part for me is kind of like the Raiders thing. I asked the guy, hey, how did you get this website? And he says, I asked. And that was the third person in my life who did some crazy thing. And you're like, hey, how'd you get to do that? And they said, I asked. And so I thought, hey, if I want something, I have to ask. It's up to me. See, like my daughter calls it self advocating, right? If you want to do something, like if I wanted to be on this, let's say the podcasts, I could have asked. And
Mm-hmm.
like
So what you're saying is you didn't want to be on.
No. That's
there we go. Say it again, Mark.
There you are.
Yeah, we're working.
What did you do?
I hit the button over here in the corner
for recording.
Yeah.
A sticker on it. Oh.
Okay, here we go. All right, now we're back. That was a little intermission. You were telling a story.
About the why are we who we are, sort of a little bit, and
just
being apprehensive about how do you get things, or how did we become fearless, or whatever that is. So part of that is I learned from mentors. I had like 3 who all kind of gave me the same advice when I asked them. And I guess that's my thing, really, curiosity. So I ask questions. And so I asked people like, hey, how did you get this? How did this thing happen for you? And the answer from all 3 of them was, I asked. So I kind of learned that as a late teenager, that, if you want stuff, you have to ask. But the next part of that I think is super important is that you deserve it too. If you think like, that guy would never, I don't have a great example, but let's say you wanted to meet J-Lo and you've seen her in the airport or something, right? Like, maybe that's probably a bad example because maybe you don't want to bug her, but let's put that part aside. If you wanted to say something or meet her, you have to ask. She's not going to come to you, right? She don't know you. And people think maybe, I'm not worthy or something like that. And you have to put that aside. Like, you're just as qualified. You're just as good. You're just like, nobody's better than anybody else. People are just people. And so that's kind of the preachy part is people are people. You're just as valuable as the next person. Doesn't matter if they've got, 50 million albums they sold and you've sold 0. Like, people will be just as happy to talk to you. So you just have to ask, advocate for yourself. I think that's where I was going with that.
Yeah. And I definitely think that I heard like a motivational speaker person one time they said, more often than not, when we want something and we ask, now there's 2 things you can either get, it's usually either a yes or a no. You either get it or you don't, right? Whatever you're asking for. Rarely does anyone ask and regret asking, like almost rarely, like it just never, like, right? Like you never, if you
regret not asking,
you regret.
I should have said hello to J-Lo.
Yep.
I could have been husband number whatever.
Yep.
What
it's overcoming that little hump of fear, and saying, hey, I just got to go ask. And then once you do that, you're there. I mean, here's an example. Valentine's Day this year, right? I'm sitting in a restaurant and doing some movie business on Valentine's Day, February 14th of this year. And I saw a beautiful woman sitting down in the restaurant. I thought she was very beautiful. And so I was like, I'm just going to go up and say hi and compliment her. And so 3 months later, we're still dating.
Oh, right on.
And that was all because I went up to her in a restaurant on Valentine's Day and said, hey, I like the color of that sweatshirt you're wearing. It looks good on you. We hit it off. We started dancing and here we are, 3 months later. And it was all like what you said, Mark. It was all because I went up and asked, essentially, I just gave her the compliment.
Yeah.
That's cool. I did not know that story.
Yeah, that's the story. So now that's out on the podcast here.
We won't tell anyone.
Yeah. Right on.
Her name's Holly, by the way, my girlfriend.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you've introduced me to her.
Right. I was just saying,
didn't know that's how you met her.
Yeah.
I just figured like, I don't know. I just figured like, he picked this gal up, like.
So I got to ask the question, hey, Tyler, how'd you meet Holly? I asked.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
That's
And so I would have regretted now not going up and asking. And it was like just that simple approach and going up and saying, hey, I like what the sweatshirt you're wearing. And of course it was on Valentine's Day. So that either help or hurt me. In this case, it helped. Right.
And it said the Formless podcast on the front.
Yeah.
Right?
By the way, oh no.
Yeah, but man, just to think back and be like, man, I would have regretted not approaching, her
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
talking. And so
Yeah.
it goes with anything. Rarely are we regret asking. It's the we regret not asking.
For sure. For sure. I'm weird. I don't have a problem going up to people. Like I can go up to a complete stranger and strike up a conversation. My wife's the opposite. She doesn't want to talk to people she doesn't know. Like she's very shy in that aspect. She's introverted. I'm extroverted. I'll talk to anybody, um, pretty much. But like that part for me is not a problem. Like I can talk to people. I can get up in front of people to talk until the cows come home. But like doing something I'm unfamiliar with, like technology, obviously, technology is not a strong point for me. Like I know enough to get myself in trouble.
Can you use
Right,
the
right.
mouse?
Huh? I can use a mouse. Yes, I could use a mouse. But like the Zoom meeting, we're getting into some murky water there, bud. But yeah. That's funny though. I guess I just need to look at it like people and just like dealing with people, talking with people. It's a good
And
thing.
Mark, like you said, it's like the ask, and that ask is such a simple little thing, right? But it's so hard sometimes, the ask
Yeah,
and
yeah.
overcoming that. But it's really the simplest little thing.
True that. True that. Mark has always like the whole step, every step of the way here. Mark's like, so, he's got this whole agenda or this whole plan for me. Like, okay, so here's what you do. You just send out some emails, just all the people that you want to interview. Just email them all. And the worst that can happen is they say no, or they don't open
Exactly.
the email. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you're right, Mark. You're right. And or like episode 2, he was like, hey, let's sell you guys some shirts. I'm like, oh, Mark, we're not ready yet. I don't know if it was episode 2, but like we're not ready for that yet. He's like, why? What's wrong? What's the worst that could happen? And that took what, a year of talking about it before he was like, I just made it and here you go.
You can fire me.
No, never fire you, man. You're awesome.
My question for that, Mark, is with those three mentors that you had, right? That you had that, and they all essentially said, ask, right? What how to somebody who's afraid to ask, because we all get afraid to ask. I get afraid to ask certain times of
Certain girls out.
yeah, that certain, you ask this person to be on your movie, or you ask for this, what do you have to say to somebody that's wanting to ask something, and there's, or do you have anything to say, that wants to do something, and they've got to get to that point of just asking, and they're where they're at now, and there's the point where they would ask, but to bridge that distance in between the where they are now and the ask,
That's
what
really
is.
that's really hard for me because I can't overcome your obstacle for you. And I don't know exactly what that obstacle is. I have this problem. This is the biggest problem I have with trying to find salespeople or trying to train salespeople. That's like the hardest thing for people to do is to pick up the phone and talk to a stranger and ask them a question. And I say it's easy for me to say, "Oh, hey, Tyler," like they don't know you, they don't know who you are, they don't know where you live, they don't know what kind of car you drive, they don't know what you're wearing. You're gonna call them up, they're gonna say no. You'll be okay. You won't die. I mean, I sound a little like a jerk, I guess, but you could say that to people, but it doesn't stop their stomach from hurting when they're trying to make the phone call. And I don't know how to help someone past that. Like, if that girl said no to you, that doesn't make you any less of a person or any less valuable of a person, or maybe she doesn't want to date right now. It might not even have anything to do with you. You never know. Maybe her mom just died. Like it means nothing except where you're not getting a date. It shouldn't hurt you, but we always take it personally, like, oh, I didn't wear my hair right today, or maybe I shouldn't have worn these shoes, or she doesn't like or maybe this happened or that. Everybody takes it personally, but it's just not personal.
Yeah. We do. We take a lot of things so
including
personal.
me. We all do it.
Absolutely. Especially if it catches you off guard. Like you weren't expecting that,
Yeah.
right? Or like, oh, she could have been like, she could have been like, well, I'm waiting for my boyfriend.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, whoops, sorry. Which would have been a totally acceptable response because it was Valentine's Day. Maybe they went out to lunch or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's hundreds of different options or things that could have gone that way. Um, Obviously they didn't, but like you can't mentally prepare for all of the different responses that could happen.
Right.
But back on Tyler's question, getting what you asked for is so awesome. It's worth that other part.
Yeah.
It's worth the stomach ache. It's worth the feeling weird. It's worth feeling just a little weird when you get that thing that you asked for. It's way worth it.
And in like being in sales, you get more no's than yeses. And it's a numbers game. And you know, once you figure out how many no's you get
Yeah,
before you get a yes, it's just a matter of like being able to get through those no's. And some days it's super easy. You just like nothing bothers you. You can take no's all day because you know that yes is coming. But other days, like if you have an off day, it's a slog getting through each and every one of those no's before you get that yes. It gets better over time,
And you
kind of.
get desensitized to it to where it's not that big of a deal, where the ask becomes, at least in my experience,
Yeah,
the
you
ask be,
can. I definitely agree. You can.
the ask becomes less painful, and you just get used to asking, in my experience. So
Ask away. Right. That's the response. Ask away.
ask away, try away.
Yeah. Try again.
hey,
uh,
that'll be a new song. We'll have to make the Ask Away song.
There you go. There you go. So Mark just sends me random text messages with links to YouTube videos of things that he's created, music wise, and all of them, they're I like them. They're great. They're great. It's always like at the most random times too, which I love because I'm like, oh, cool. Mark made a new song. Pull it up on the video.
I think one of the things, like, from, if somebody has the desire to ask, and but where they are now, and the desire to ask for something, you want to ask for a raise at work, let's just say that
Mhm.
you're at work, you want to ask for a raise, and you're at where you are now. Well, some people might be able to just like be like, okay, and they flip an internal switch and say, okay, I'm just going to ask for a raise. Some people can do that. Some people, they need to work their way up to it, and so rather than going straight to the ask for a raise, they might have to say, okay, well, now I'm going to ask somebody in the store that I don't know a question. Just ask them, hey, do you know what the temperature is going to be like next week? And it's
Oh,
get
like that break the ice kind of thing.
yeah, break the ice in
Gotcha.
like a
I'm
small little
following.
step here, and versus
Gradually work your way up to it as opposed
versus
to punching them in the face with a give me a raise.
That's right. That's right. That would be the answer to my question, is you'd take the small steps first, rather, but some people can just take that one large step.
Just dive in.
So, but anyways, that's fascinating, Mark, that you had three mentors that you were able to all get the same information. Like, you were essentially able to interpret that they were all saying the same thing.
Yeah,
Can I ask who they were?
that's a really good question. And so Rick Tracewell, that was TNT Media, that was the Raiders website. I asked him that question, how'd you get this website? And he just said, oh, I asked. The other two, I don't actually remember the exact scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I'm certain one was Dan Rosetta. He was my, like, for 6 years. I was a DJ. I worked with him. He found me in a record store. I worked at Tower Records, and he put all this music on the counter, and I'm like, oh, you must be a DJ. And by that Saturday, so was I. But he was my mentor. He taught me a lot. So probably him. And I don't actually remember right this minute the exact situations. I just remember that from growing up, that being the answer.
Huh. Very cool. Um, one of the how long have you been doing websites now?
Since about late 90s. So
Close
a,
to 25, 25, 30 years, something like
yeah.
that.
A while.
Wow.
A while.
And I write software, so I'm, computer programmer guy. So that's the fun thing is like if when Dustin's talking about the podcast and he said, "Oh, how are we going to do this?" or even we're talking about swimming to Cuba or something, right? That's really the fun part for me is if you said, "Well, we need to this is how my business runs and we need the business to run better." I like to figure out here's how your business is going to run better and I write the software that does that. Then it happens to also usually be connected into a website. There's a company there in town. Maybe I won't mention their name, but they're like a tennis and fitness club. And I did some stuff for them, and they got rid of 6 employees. Not that that's great, but I saved them that much money just by writing some software to help people book tennis courts and stuff like that. Uh, so that's fun. Not getting people fired is fun, but helping people be more efficient in their business.
What somebody that's been doing something for as long as you have, I'm always interested how you keep it fresh. How do you keep it fresh? How do you stay engaged every day working and writing code or doing those things? How do you know what I'm saying?
I understand the question. I don't really know the answer except um, I love the challenge of the phone never ringing. Not that I don't want to talk to Dustin, but if I'm doing my job right, he will never ever call me. And I'm talking about in his former job, right? If if everything is so intuitive and so perfect and you never have a problem, you don't need to call me. That's kind of the goal. So the goal is that's the game. How little phone calls can I get with the customer base? Um, I love inventing things. I guess that's why, like, I made the song last week about the dog ate the remote, and I just thought it was really funny. I'm cracking myself up laughing for 2 hours. But uh, I just like to make stuff. So the software thing is, what kind of new feature can I build today? Like I get to invent new things every day, just whatever I can think of. And a lot of times people like we were just doing a Zoom thing and I don't know the steps it took you to get the meeting up, right? But if I was doing this, I'd figure out, well, this has to be easier. It shouldn't be that hard. This is a big company. I'm not picking on them. I'm just
Yeah.
saying it shouldn't have taken us an hour to figure out what the issue was. What can I do? What can I build to make that better? And that's pretty much my daily what can I make? Like if I write code and I've got 3,000 lines of code, how can I do the same thing in 300 lines?
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, when I met Mark, when I was like interviewing him for the job, I go, so Mark, what are some things you can and can't do, or something to that effect? Like what can we do with the website? Like how would we, make these things work? And he's like, I can do anything you want. Like it was just so open answered, like
We're limited by your and my
imagine.
imaginations only.
Yeah, yeah. And
You've
that
seen it.
was
We can
so
do it.
eye opening because everybody up until that point was like, well, and they had this whole agenda and they wanted you to convert to their game plan or their idea. And we had done that a whole bunch of times and it worked, but it was really clunky and it was hard for the customer and all of these things. And Mark's like, anything you can think of, we can make it happen. And it was like so freeing and so um just awesome. It made it so much more exciting and fun. And nobody had ever done that
Yeah.
for us, and that was at that point, it had been like 5 or 6 years of trying to do it and redo it and do it, and then you bring in a new guy and they want to start all over from scratch. And Mark was like, well, I have the thing's already set. It's already built. We'll just change the color, do this. We can change whatever you want to make it fit whatever you like. And then we just got to put the data in there. The nuts and bolts are, it's already constructed as far as that's concerned. Just fill it in, with your stuff. And it was awesome. It was really cool. I think we're pretty good here, Mark, unless there's anything else you want to add. I would love to give you the opportunity to like kind of plug your gig and tell people where they can find you, and if they want to build a website that's snazzy and super awesome, who to contact and all of that sort of stuff. And in the show notes, I'll put a link to your YouTube channel if that's okay with you, so people can hear your music, more of it.
If they like to laugh.
Yeah.
Okay, so my website, I guess, is automatrix.net. And we can build anything you can dream.
Absolutely.
That's the pitch.
I can definitely testify to that for sure.
Anything you can dream. I like that.
Yeah.
Go Spartans. I went to San Jose State too.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. That's where I got my film degree. You said that at the beginning of the podcast about going to San Jose State. And I was like, oh yeah, I went there too.
Yeah, I was there in 98.
Cool.
I took a 2-year learn to be a computer businessman program in 6 weeks.
Right on. Hold on, wait a minute. 2 years and 6 weeks?
I did in 6 weeks.
Well,
you could take one class because the classes are sometimes 8 hours or 6 hours, or they're long classes.
Yeah.
And they're like, you can only take, one a day and one here. I took 3 a day, or I didn't. What else am I doing? So.
Well, yeah, you went from working all day to sitting around just waiting for something to do. So yeah, makes sense.
Awesome. Yeah, got my little piece of paper, says I can do internet stuff. That's to go to school for. Get a piece of paper.
I've heard that before.
Your wife's getting a piece of paper, right?
Yes, she is. She's really working hard. She's got a little bit of a break here. I'm super proud of her. She keeps she starts off super excited, and then as the end of that semester or whatever you want to call it comes closer and closer, she's so tired and so burnt out, and then she gets a week or two off, and then she's like all gung-ho again, and it's this whole cycle of life happening in a period of like 6 weeks, and then she starts a new one, and it's awesome. I'm really proud of her. She's doing really well.
My daughter's getting a piece of paper. She's getting her master's from college in Augusta, Georgia, which is someplace they have, I guess, a golf tournament. So I figured she's getting her master's.
You got to go to the Masters.
Jacket.
Yeah.
So I'm getting her a green jacket.
You are, for real?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That is so awesome. That is so awesome. You got to take her to the golf course.
You won't know what it's for, but I'll just be laughing.
No, take her to the golf course and then give her the jacket.
Oh.
I mean, I'm assuming no one plays golf, right? You don't play golf, do you?
I don't play golf.
No, either do I. But that's like part of it, right? You go to the Masters, you win the Masters, you get the jacket. So take her to the golf course, and she's looking at you like, "What are you doing, Dad?" And then be like,
we'll go to the mini golf, and I'll give her.
There you go. There you go. Oh, Mark, thank you for putting up with us. Thank you for doing all that you do. I really, really appreciate you. And
yeah. Well, thank you for letting me and having me on.
Yeah. And anytime you ever want to do this and put up with us twiddling the knobs and sending emails back and forth for an hour before we start, let me know and we'll set it up.
All right.
Oh, thanks. We're going to have Mark back on.
Yeah, we're going to smooth this out. We're going to make it efficient. We're going to make it seamless, and we'll have you back on, and hopefully no hiccups.
Right on.
Take care, boss.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Does this mean there's a podcast to edit coming soon?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Later.
Later.
See you, Mark. Nice meeting you finally.
Yeah, you too.
Holy cow.
That was good. That second.
That was like so much smoother.
Yeah.